What I like to do is extend as close to directly in line with the crank as I can, and then I'll actually push down on the crank like this or on the pedal as I lift up, and this can require quite a bit of force. What's up guys, it's Levi with Berkshire Bike and Board, and today we're going to be talking about how to take pedals off the bike as well as put them back on. Relatively simple topic, but there's a couple things that can kind of catch you up there. Tools we'll need is either a pedal wrench or a set of Allen keys depending on the pedals that you're using, as well as a rag, and it's always best practice to have some grease as well. The first thing we need to figure out is what tool we'll need to use for our pedals. This pair of pedals here has flats for a pedal wrench, so you can use the pedal wrench to take them off. The tool's a little bit bigger, it's easier to get leverage, it makes the process nice and easy. There are some pedals out there that don't have the flats, so we're not able to use this tool. All of these pedals are going to have a hex key inserted through the back of the crank arm, and then we can remove them this way. The process is the same, it's just a different tool that we'll need to use. Generally speaking, all bicycle pedals will fit onto all bicycles, all cranks. The only exception I can really think of to that rule would be a kid's bike. The diameter of the threads here is going to be 9/16 of an inch. This is 99% of the pedals that we see in the bike shop. This is a kid's pedal where this has a 1/2 inch thread diameter. It's pretty easy to spot, you know, if you have the wrong size pedal, it's not going to be anywhere near the right size threads on the crank. Really the trickiest bit about pedals is that the right hand side of the bicycle, and that's when you're standing over the bicycle or riding the bicycle, is going to work just like any normal thread that we're used to. So that's going to be righty-tighty, lefty-loosey, pretty straightforward. The other side, the left side of the bike or the non-drive side, is going to have a reverse thread. The reason that they do that is if both sides were normal threads, the pedals would actually work themselves loose over time. And that's through a process called mechanical precessions. It actually has nothing to do with the bearings. It more has to do with the force that's going up and down on the pedals as you're going through. But nonetheless, we do need to differentiate which pedal goes on which side of the bike before we start that process. It can be a little bit hard to see, especially probably on this video. But if I hold the pedal directly in front of me, I can see that the threads are pointing at an angle. So when I'm looking at the threads, this one here is going to be pointing up and to the right. So that's going to be the right hand pedal. This other pedal, I hold the threads out just in front of me and it's pointing up and to the left. So this is going to be the left hand pedal. Because the threads are opposite on opposite sides, we can't just use the normal lefty-loosey, righty-tighty. So what I like to think of is anytime we're looking at the bike in this direction, if we want to get the pedals off of the bike, whether we're using this tool or this tool, you're going to be swinging the tool up and towards the back of the bike, kind of like you can see here. On this bike, or out with this tool, it's going to look like this on the front side of the crank. The pedals on here do require the Allen key, so we're going to be looking at the back side of the crank. The tool's going to go in and it's going to swing up and towards the back of the bike. Once I have the pedals loose here, we actually can hold the outside of the pedal, and this is what we like to call pedal off. So as we're swinging this crank in the normal pedaling direction, this pedal is backing out. Eventually, the pedal will come off. This one was relatively loose when we started. There are a couple tricks to make the process a little bit easier because the pedals can be on there quite tight. Even though this crank is on the opposite side of the bike, we're still going to be swinging this tool up and towards the back of the bike. This pedal's on here quite a bit tighter than the other side was. What we really need to think about here is leverage. So I have this tool, and if I'm trying to put the tool in the pedal like this, I'm kind of working at this from an awkward angle. I can't really put all of my strength or weight into the pedal. So what I like to do is extend as close to directly in line with the crank as I can, and then I'll actually push down on the crank like this or on the pedal as I lift up, and this can require quite a bit of force. There we go. Now that I've broken that loose, you can see it's nice and easy to move. And again, we're going to continue that motion up and towards the back of the bike. And once it's a little bit loose, I can grab the outside of the spindle and I can just pedal this off. Same bike, different set of pedals. This pedal does require the pedal wrench rather than the tool. And again, leverage is going to be our friend. I can actually put my foot on the pedal here and I can reach down around the pedal. And you can see in this position, it's really easy for me to put my weight into the pedal and move it backwards. Makes this process nice and easy. What we're trying to avoid is an awkward direction. So like if I have the pedal wrench on kind of like this and I'm trying to do it, I don't have the leverage that I need to get that off. So it's just about spinning the pedals and finding the wrench flats until you find a spot where you feel like you're gonna have the best mechanical advantage to get this off. And all I need to do is crack them loose with the tool. I can back the rest off by hand. And then the other side is the same. So you can grab the crank arm like this. The position's a little bit awkward when I come down into this side, but I can flip this tool over and I'm gonna grab the other side of the crank arm It's gonna fit right on there, and I can just break it loose just like that. Now we have the pedals off, and it's about getting them back on. Before we actually start this process, there are a couple things. Make sure you have the right pedal for the right side. Again, I'm looking at these threads. They're pointing up and to the right, so I know this is the right side pedal. I have the right side crank arm right here. We want all of this stuff really clean. We shouldn't have to use a tool to get this pedal 90% of the way in there. We really just need the tool to get the final torque on there. So if this pedal or the crank arm is dirty, I'll just take a rag, maybe some cleaner to get it nice and clean. This is a new pedal, so it's perfectly clean. And same thing with the inside of this crank arm. You know, you can just run a rag through there and get it nice and clean. We do want to make sure that we're using grease, just a little dab that will work itself in there as we get the pedal in there. Where we see some issues in the shop sometimes, or where you can cause some damage, once you actually start to get this pedal threaded, or before, we want to make sure it's completely perpendicular to the crank arm. So if we're coming up at an angle, we have, you know, the possibility of cross threading where the threads are not lined up, and you can damage or ruin a crank as well as the pedal. Generally, it's the crank that takes the brunt of the damage. Coming in at a perfect angle, we're gonna go in the opposite direction. So no matter what side we're on, we wanna be going towards the front of the bike, down and towards the front of the bike, the same way that the tires are rotating, right? This is the right side. Threads are clean, you got grease on there. I know what direction I'm going. We really should be able to do this by hand. If you're experiencing a pedal that you just can't get in there, there's probably something wrong. It could be the wrong pedal, the threads could already be a little bit damaged, and we really don't want to force anything from this point. If you notice that it's a little funny, it's best practice to bring the bike into the shop. If the threads, just these outer threads, have a little bit of damage on them, we can usually clean it up with a tap and get you sorted. But when you really start forcing things is where you can cause the most damage. And I'm just gonna spin it forward. And the same way that I held the spindle before and pedaled the pedal off, if I just go the opposite direction and pedal backwards while I'm holding the spindle, we can get that hand tight, right? So it went in nice and easy. I wasn't forcing anything. And the last step is to just come in with the tool, either one, and just apply some pressure here. As the pedals tend to tighten themselves up as you ride, I just like to give it a good little bit of force. So I'm just gonna tighten it up like that, and we're all set and good to go. On the other side of the bike, we're going in that same direction where we're going down and towards the bike with our tool. So I bring it around, same square or perpendicular angle, and I just thread the pedal in by hand most of the way. When they have the Allen key on the back side, you can reach through and just spin the tool. That can be a nice little trick as well. And again, we're not gonna go crazy tight, but just a little bit of force down in there and we're all set. And to demonstrate what that looks like with a tool that requires a pedal wrench, same thing, by hand, nice and easy, get it started, and we get it most of the way. I'll actually then take the pedal wrench, put it onto the wrench flats, and just rotate the crank backwards until it's tight. I just hit a little stop there, and again, not a ton of force, just a nice little snug bit to get it tight. And to demonstrate what that looks like with a tool that requires a pedal wrench, same thing, by hand, nice and easy, get it started, and we get it most of the way. I'll actually then take the pedal wrench, put it onto the wrench flats, and just rotate the crank backwards until it's tight. I just hit a little stop there, and again, not a ton of force, just a nice little snug bit to get it tight. Thank you guys for tuning in. As always, if this was useful to you, we're going to be doing more of these videos, so don't forget to like and subscribe.